Event freelancers, welcome to your new community, connecting you to your next project. Get connected. Sign up now. It's free.
Hello and welcome to session 18. In this session, we're about to learn from one of the best technical companies in our industry about the challenges they've had to meet this year and how they have helped the industry move into this virtual environment that we are all demanding now. With me here in Hong Kong, we have Chris Burke, Managing Director of CT Asia, and we have Justin Choi, Managing Director of CT Hong Kong. And I'm delighted to tell you that we are live from their newest green screen studio here in Hong Kong. So, Chris.
Hi.
Welcome.
Good to be here.
It's been a tough year.
It has.
Talk to me and the audience a little bit about the challenges that you've had to face this year.
Wow, lots of challenges. I think what we need to start with is just to put a bit of perspective and go back to the beginning of the year, because in Asia, we were probably 3 months ahead of the UK and Europe in terms of the effects of COVID. So we started seeing the effects in our business from around the end of January, beginning of February. There was a period of time of about 2 months where clients held their breaths. They didn't really know what to do. Everyone was either trying to find ways to move their events further out, look at alternative ways to deliver, but primarily what happened is everything stopped. Now, when we got to the end of March, beginning of April, that's really around the time when we started thinking seriously about how do we survive? How do we go to the next stage? How do we deliver in this the new virtual world? We were lucky within our group that we have the resources and the knowledge globally that we can tap into to find out, what other parts of our business have been doing as well. So that really led us to where we got to our first step, which was, let's build a virtual studio and let's do it primarily for educating ourselves, educating our clients about how to work in this environment, and then use that as a sales tool to go forward. And that's really what we did with Hong Kong. But prior to that happening, our business in Singapore, our business in Shanghai, our business in Tokyo was massively affected. We were getting ready to go into the Olympics in July in Tokyo, and we had globally a massive team that was just about to move into Japan. Of course, that stopped. We had significant projects all across the region, and I would say 99% of those projects were either postponed or cancelled. And that's still ongoing because we have clients that still want to deliver some of these projects this year, and because we're about a quarter ahead of the rest of the world, there is possibility that will come back. And we are seeing a recovery in Asia, in certain parts of Asia for Q4.
I know you're in the business of technology, audiovisual, but there's a lot of people in the background.
Yeah.
I would imagine there are freelancers in every corner of the world that had to receive those calls from you as well. How do you manage that?
Yeah, how do we manage that? I mean, I'm lucky that, just like the team we have in Hong Kong, that we have people that are able to deal with those situations. And I've got to say, the clients that we have as well have been great. We haven't had any issues with clients that have committed to projects, committed to paying cancellation fees, that then reneged on those fees. And the flip side of that is when we've made promises to freelance staff that, we gave you a contract, we will pay you, we've done that. And I wouldn't have that any other way. But, what we're starting to see in Singapore, I mean, an example today, a conversation with our GM in Singapore, is that we're seeing hotels that are now laying off people in the dozens and dozens. And, it's really affecting everybody massively. And Singapore is the one location in Asia within our business that is having the slowest return to normal. It's very slow over there. But yeah, everybody's affected, from the logistics companies to the every type of technical support role. Everybody's been affected.
And so talk to me a little bit about the strategic changes you actually then implemented and changed, maybe bringing us to here.
Well, I mean, strategically, the main one is our focus on how we add to our toolkit the virtual environment. How do we make that work? What do we have to do that, to get to that point? And we addressed that initially in our original studio, which we're talking about it as if it was in the very distant past, but this is something that's happened, in the last 3 months. We've gone from conceptualizing it, thinking about how we're going to do it, building it, presenting from it, other clients using it, and then moving on to another version very quickly. So we really just had to, take ourselves out of our comfort zones to really dive into something new. And again, I'll refer back to the knowledge that we have within our group. It helps us enormously because, in London, in the US, in Europe, we have people that we can talk to day and night about advice about the right way to do things, the wrong way to do things, learnings from how other people have done it, and that's all within our own group and our own IP. And that's such a unique perspective for a company like CT to be able to tap into that, and it fast tracks everything. You get to move from A to Z so much quicker than you would normally have to by reading the rule book or reading the manual. So that's been a great help. So strategically, we very quickly decided we have to do this. And Hong Kong was the first place because we were recovering far quicker than anybody else in the region. So we decided, let's do this here, let's do this now. And yes, there's risk, because the risk is we're investing time and money into building something, and then it's not just hope, because we market it properly and we build it to a level that we think people will be impressed with it, but still, you have to get clients into this. You have to get them understanding how this works, working in the new environment, and educating them about how this new virtual world will work for them.
So did you build this before those conversations happened, or did you have to work with your Asian clients and your Asian agencies to understand their needs?
So in Hong Kong specifically, we've always had a big background in R&D. So fortunately, we've already been looking into virtualizing events for a little bit, even before COVID happened. And essentially what happened was, I remember that conversation that I had in Chris's office when COVID hit, and we said, well, we've got to do something. We've got to act fast, or we're just going to be sitting here doing absolutely nothing. And so essentially, overnight, we went from from having nothing into a proof of concept stage. So we very quickly transformed our demo room into a proof of concept virtual studio, where we had a lot of feedback, a lot of help from our colleagues around the world into creating our first little demo studio, which was immensely successful. A lot of clients came in to take a look at that, and they loved it. And immediately, we knew that we were onto something. And so, again, kind of like overnight, we went from our demo studio into what we have here today, which is a full-fledged studio built in our brand new office.
And has that challenged the skill sets? Has everybody had to get to know a new way of working?
I would say that at Creative Technology, we are very good at using technology in very, very weird ways, if you would let me say that. I mean, anybody can buy a piece of tech. That's easy. But actually knowing the piece of tech in and out, that's what's really, really difficult. And our ability to know our tech in and out actually lets us adapt to the existing technology that we used to have and that we've been using every single day into a new, what some would call a new environment like this.
Well, listen, we've talked a little bit about how you changed your ways this year. Why don't we see and play a video of your previous studio that you had to create just a few weeks ago?
Sure.
Welcome to the Creative Technology Virtual Event Studio. Today, we wanted to briefly talk about a subject that's on everyone's minds. What exactly is a virtual event?
Now, with everything going on in the world right now, virtual events has sort of become a buzzword that everyone has been throwing around without a unified meaning to it. And I'd like to give everyone our take on what is a virtual event.
To talk about that, we need to briefly take a look at how we got here. The obvious answer is COVID-19. With the pandemic happening, the public is primarily concerned about movements and congregating in masses. But at the essence, all businesses must go on, and that's what we are helping with.
To one side, you have the consumer brands such as Microsoft Teams or Skype, Google Meet, Zoom, all innovating past their previous simple conference calls. Facebook Live, YouTube Live, Vimeo, and a slew of consumer streaming platforms now include an ability to comment or interact on a basic level through text.
Then you have the professional platforms that offer all of the above in a secure manner and white label their service to your brand guidelines. However, the common denominator of all of these services is the online aspect of them all. They all require you to send them something to distribute online to your audience.
And as we all know, there is a lot more to hosting an event than simply printing a banner. And that same thing is true for a virtual event. And that's where we want to help. Now, to break it all down and try to simplify this a little, there are roughly 3 verticals to virtual events. Let me take you through the steps. Contribute. This is where the conversation happens. Presenters contribute to the dialogue that you are delivering to your audience. There can be a single presenter or multiple presenters. They can all be at home using their webcams, or they can come into a virtual studio like this one and deliver their message in a virtual environment like this.
Better yet, what if the presenters are all in different countries, unable to congregate in a single place to present? Perhaps we can bring them all together in the virtual world so that it looks like they're in the same virtual space, yet physically in different locations.
The next is moderation. Analogous to the classic control panel that we are all used to, this is where all the different signals are sent, joined, distributed, and displayed so that the contributors can effectively contribute. And we package up all of these signals into a singular final video to be distributed to your audience.
Distribution. Lastly, this is the part where we take that final video from the previous step and distribute it to the world. This is achieved using something we called content distribution networks. A studio is actually part of the contribution vertical, where we are providing a place for your speakers to contribute to your message. Moreover, a virtual studio is much more feature-rich than a conventional one. It enables presenters to contribute their message in an effective and engaging manner.
Here, in our smart studio, we can turn your live event into a virtual experience with an interactive live audience. Our immersive solution is a combination of a physical LED wall and a floor, combined with an augmented reality environment that can be fully customized.
In this virtual set, you can present your keynote, PowerPoint, and show video content. And over here, we can be joined by a remote speaker as well.
Now lastly, this studio is actually safely operated from another room. And best of all, it's completely reusable. Because it's virtual, there is zero waste. And we can help you create your set environment of your dreams, and you can use it over and over again. No more building big sets that you can only use once and have to throw away. I hope you enjoyed that quick preview of our virtual event Smart Studio. Thank you very much for your time.
Wow, amazing, thank you. So let me tell you straight away, that video was for a studio that was made 2 weeks ago, and through supply and demand and the increase of agencies and clients wanting more, we're actually sat in the newest green screen studio here in Hong Kong. Justin, why don't you tell us a little bit about what we're in now?
Yeah, sure, definitely. So version 1 of our studio, our virtual studio, was exactly what the video said. It was a completely immersive environment. It was, we could create anything you want. It's completely virtual. It's completely reusable, so it's very, very green. Our control panel was in a room across, so it's completely COVID safe. And we thought about how can we improve upon that. And so what we did was we said, okay, well, let's make it really, really good. Let's be able to move the camera around, zoom in, zoom out, and make it really, really dynamic and have essentially everything popping up everywhere. And so today what you're seeing here is our brand new studio. This is, we're calling it Studio 12. It is a green screen studio. As you can see, we have amazing Hong Kong backdrop behind me, and we're on an amazing little CT logo in our CT branded studio. But let me show you what it actually looks like. So if we can go to the green. So we're sitting in a green box, and this is all it. But in this green box, we can put anything you want. The camera can move, it can zoom out, it can zoom in. And every single window, every single screen that you see here right now is actually a presentation screen. So we can pipe video, we can pipe PowerPoint, we can pipe remote presenters into any of these screens that you would like as well.
Well, that gives me a great cue to introduce another part of your business, because of course, it's not just been busy here in Hong Kong. I know that you've been busy in London and in the US. Why don't we play a little sneak preview of what London has been doing, and then we'll go to Nick Askew as well. Let me welcome Nick Askew from CT London. Nick, why don't you tell us a little bit about what we've just seen in that short video?
Yeah, so in London, we've set up our studio with LED as the backdrop. So instead of a green screen studio, we've got live visuals that the presenters can see while we're presenting, and the backdrops are all live, and they can see them while things are going on. One of the main advantages of that is that, like what the setup you guys have got there, you can turn to one side, you can see your visuals, and for presenters who are not familiar with presenting in a green screen environment, they can see what they're doing. And what we're doing also using are some really exciting render engines and stuff for live visuals and photorealistic visuals. And using things like Unreal Engine and Notch and things like that.
And what you've created in London, is that different to the different for the corporate market? Has it been designed with different clients in mind?
Yeah, so the original intention was for us to use it as a visualization tool. It's something we'd actually planned from the end of last year to do. So we were quite fortunate, if you like, that we were a little bit ahead of the game with the planning for it. But there's no doubt that the COVID situation has accelerated the R&D that we've had to do for it. But yeah, so it's currently planned to use for corporates. You've seen music artists using it as well, and we're doing quite a lot of some visualization there and some sports things we're looking at it as well.
And I assume that both this studio that we're in now and London are connected. If a client wanted to go global, that's possible.
Yeah, so I mean, Nick, if you don't mind me taking that question, one of the things that I've actually been working with the guys at CT UK is actually to create a link between all of our studios so that we can actually composite two presenters in completely separate geographical locations into one virtual environment, which is probably the holy grail of what we're trying to do right now. And I actually just finished a call last Wednesday, and we should probably be ready to roll that out very, very, very soon.
And how many locations are we talking about? Which countries are you focusing on?
Everywhere where we have a studio, which is pretty much anywhere in the world.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if we go from Europe, if we go Dublin, as where CT Ireland have got a studio ready. We know we've got London, CT Spain have got a studio. As we go across into the NEP group in Holland, in Hilversum, they have one. Then the Middle East a mid way of doing theirs. As you come across here, we have this studio now. We're going to have a studio in Singapore as well. In Australia, we have Melbourne, we have Sydney, and then across the US, every office, I think in the US, definitely Los Angeles, Vegas. They have built one recently, Atlanta.
Yeah,
So yes,
Atlanta.
Everywhere.
basically pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, great. So you're ready. You've got the studio and the tech ready.
Yeah.
How are you helping your clients get ready? Because as an experienced producer myself, it is different. We want to tell ourselves it's the same, but what do producers, show callers, production managers, creative agencies, creative directors need to know about how to now apply themselves into this world?
That's a great question, and I know, talking to Nick yesterday, if we start with the UK, because I think they're specifically putting together an action plan to do some education for their studio in the UK. What we're doing here, before we go into that, is that we're continuing what we did with our version 1, is we're just inviting industry people in to come in and see the studio. You know, we're helping out with some charities and some NGOs to use this environment, and that also gives us exposure, but it also means that we're ready. People can see it in its core use and go, okay, I can see how that can work for me. But I know Nick, they're putting together a much more wider package for the freelance community in terms of how that works.
And what skills should those freelancers be thinking about upskilling, changing, in order to work in this environment?
I would say the biggest difference between what we're doing here and what we used to be doing in a live event is there's no more coffee breaks, there's no more foyers, there's no more guest registration. That's all handled digitally right now. When you get into this environment, it's a completely different show flow. And what you want to do is you want to create the most amazing visual experience that you possibly can get, and everyone has a VIP seat to it. And I might just add, on the other side of it, the amount of data that you can actually get from a virtual event is amazing. You can figure out exactly how many people logged on. You can figure out exactly when they logged on, when they logged off, which parts were the most enjoyable, the most enticing. The data is endless, and you never have to fill out a feedback form ever again.
But I would say that there are still show callers out there, producers out there, still wondering how they're going to meet the demands of what's coming. What do you have to say to them?
Look, I think the predominant skill sets that all of our peers in the industry have obviously still usable. It's still work here. And the backstage environment, although it may feel slightly different because it's not in a ballroom or an exhibition center, it's the same skill set. You know, you still need to rely on your team of techs that are doing audio, video, lighting, mixing, recording. All of those people still exist. The show caller role, the show director role, that needs to be expanded on slightly because you're in a slightly different environment, And as you said, it's more like a TV studio. That's really the environment that we're in here. And of course, there are different skill sets that come with making that work. But there's nothing to be, there's no great leap of faith to come into this environment. It's just really, getting into it and getting into shape. It's almost as if, we're being forced to, take a break from our industry, and you need to come back into it and train hard again. But it's not like riding a bike, but it's that mentality. We've all been professionals in this industry for so long, people will come back and they'll learn very quickly how to get on with it.
Maybe one question for Nick. Nick, what is the one unique thing that CT London is doing that's going to help creative directors, creative agencies change the way they think about a live event now being virtual?
Yeah, so I think one of the primary bits we're doing at the moment is the education. We're looking to run some workshops and help skill people up with how they just need to rethink events in the current environment, how they can use the technology that we've got, and just slightly change the way that they think about delivering those events and all the technology that goes alongside it.
If I understand you all correctly, it's about making sure that we're no longer trying to recreate a live event into a virtual one. Actually, it is a virtual event that can be manifested in whatever version.
I would say think different. It's we're still using all the same tech. We're still using, Apple computers. We're still using PC PowerPoint. We're still using Keynote. We're still using Playback Pro, and all those machines that everyone is actually very, very used to doing and calling for. We're just using all the tech a little bit different, and so it's not a live event. It's a virtual event, but it's really not that different from what you're used to.
And potentially, crews and show callers and producers could also be remote. I suppose it's potential that we could, your clients and your agencies no longer need to be in this environment as well.
Absolutely, and I think with Nick, they recently did exactly that, where they ran a show where some of the key people weren't in the office, they weren't in the environment, they weren't in the studio, they were remote access in. So that's a reality, that's already happening.
Yeah. So everybody needs to get their bandwidth and their mobile contracts up, so I would imagine.
I would say, and this is a key point that we haven't touched on yet, is that the one area which does need to be considered more is creating the content for working in these environments. That's the one thing that workflow is very different. It's not a straightforward standard procedure. It'll be something that content creators and content producers may not be experienced of using. So that's probably where the biggest learning curve is going to be, the steepest learning curve.
You're talking about the 3D environment.
Correct.
And for me, as I do in my apartment, bandwidth. Everybody needs secure bandwidth and enough bandwidth, I would imagine, to be able to play in this environment.
Yeah, absolutely. But don't forget, in this virtual space, is that you won't every time be streaming out. You'll be recording the content and streaming in a different place. You might be recording the content and it going to your client's office and then them streaming it from another environment. So yes, bandwidth is important, but bandwidth is not one of the key factors for all of the virtual events that we're doing.
Well, we've got 1 minute left. Maybe a final point from Nick. What would you say to those agencies and those producers and those clients out there, still with a little bit of intrepidation about what virtual meetings mean to them?
Yeah, I think engage with us and our peers in the industry just to have an understanding of these environments. They're great, they're really useful, but you do need to just think differently about how to apply them. And also the platforms that distribute them. There's so many of them. You need to spend the time, just ask some questions, get involved, and let us help you with that journey.
Chris, here in Asia?
Exactly the same, exactly the same thought. It's about engaging with us. And I think sometimes agencies are reluctant to do that because I'm not sure why, but in this environment, in this world, in this new environment, engage with us, come and see us, come and experience the environment, come and talk to us about how things will work, and we're here ready to help.
Speaking for myself, I know that 20 years ago, I know that I would have invested a lot of time with my suppliers, with my techs, with the creatives. In the last 10, 15 years, that's gone a little bit. You sort of only meet your supply chain on site a day or two before. You learn a lot, but you're learning it in situ sometimes.
Yeah.
I suppose what you're suggesting is let's get back to basics and
absolutely
work it out together.
Yeah.
Well, listen, thank you very, very much. Good luck to you.
Thank you.
Nick, good luck in London. Thank you very much for your time today. And I look forward to seeing the fruits of your work in time to come.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Nick.
Thanks.
Event freelancers, welcome to your new community, connecting you to your next project. Get connected. Sign up now. It's free.